While the body was still curing from the final couple of layers of clear, I of course moved on to doing something else, and that something else is the interior. All the parts were removed from the sprues, cleaned up a tiny bit with some sandpaper and maybe even a knife here and there, and then they were all primed and painted. So firstly everything was primed gray, and then all the separate parts were painted in the colors that I wanted them to be. Now in this case I thought the interior would look really cool in a dark purple, so I chose a purple and totally forgot which one it was and painted it in that purple. After I applied a couple of coats of purple, I then let it dry for a bit, carefully started masking it off with some masking tape, and then added the black border around it afterwards. With the paint now dry, I could carefully start removing the masking tape and then moving on to adding a lot more detail to the interior, mainly just adding some flocking to simulate some carpet, and that is done in a couple of sections, the front first, then the middle, and then the rear part, to not make it too big of an area and have some dry spots in the paint that I'm using as glue, so that makes it a lot easier and also a lot cleaner of an install. Even though the bus has 23 windows, it's still pretty hard to see inside, so I didn't really want to waste a lot of time detailing the interior parts that weren't visible, so I spent the time on the parts that would remain visible, mainly the front parts like the steering wheel, the shifter column, and of course the dashboard. So I painted a couple of areas on the steering wheel and on the shifter in some silver to highlight those, then started gluing most of the interior together, mainly just the benches and the shift column, and could then move on to detailing the dashboard out a bit more. As mentioned in one of the earlier videos, this build is supported by Highlight Model Studio. They sent over a couple of photo etch pieces and parts to detail this build out, and one of those sets was for the interior. So I added a cool key, also some bezels around the instrument cluster, and a nice radio. The radio piece that is supplied in the detail set is really nicely detailed, but if you leave it in that metal color it kind of gets lost, so I decided to add some panel line accent color and really highlight those details.